ICOMOS to present the nomination of the Cosmological axis of Yogyakarta and its historic landmarks, Indonesia. But before I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Bazzamo, you may have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We received a factual error notification for this evaluation, which is on page 110 of both the English and French version of document in faith before. And in this notification, some factual errors are actually impacting on the text of the statement of OUV, which are being already incorporated in the version that is kept by the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would like to give the floor to ICOMOS.
This is the presentation of the ICOMOS evaluation of the cosmological axis of Yogyakarta and its historic landmarks, Indonesia. The ICOMOS report can be found in document INF.8B1 on page 352 of the English version and page 367 of the French version. On this evaluation, ICOMOS has received a letter on factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. Next slide. This nomination was submitted as a serial nomination of two component parts, namely the urban axis of Yogyakarta and a section of the royal tombs at Imogiri. Based on the dialogue with ICOMOS, the state party advised that the royal tombs component part had been withdrawn from the nomination, and some changes were made to the justification of criteria. A revised nomination dossier, maps, and management plan were provided to implement this decision. The ICOMOS evaluation took into consideration the revised scope of the nomination presented by the state party. The cosmological axis of Yogyakarta and its historic landmarks includes the Kraton or Palace Complex and the series of linked landmarks, monuments, and spaces located along a 6-kilometer-long north-to-south axis in central Yogyakarta. The axis is a line between Mount Merapi and the Indian Ocean. This layout is a symbolic manifestation of Javanese cosmological beliefs, connections between cosmic worlds, and philosophical reflections on the cycle of life. The landmarks are connected, spatially in their design, through rituals, and by the traditional management system known as Tatarakiting Wewangunan. The central axis of Yogyakarta is a center of government and Javanese cultural traditions. The nominated property exhibits an important interchange of human values and ideas between different belief systems related to Javanese animism and ancestor worship. Hinduism and Buddhism from India, Sufi Islam from either India or the Middle East, and Western influences which were adapted and integrated into the beliefs and culture of the Mataram kingdoms over hundreds of years. The interchange of values manifests in the property's spatial planning, architecture, monuments, ceremonies, and festivals. The cosmological axis of Yogyakarta and its historic landmarks bears an exceptional century. ICOMOS considers list. The nominated property demonstrates criteria 2 and 3, but criterion 6 has not been justified. Next slide. The central axis of Yogyakarta includes 144 tangible attributes in Yogyakarta city and the Bantul Regency. ICOMOS considers that the conditions of integrity, and although they're vulnerable, particularly to urban development pressures, and are dependent on careful consideration of materials in the repair and restoration of the proposed attributes, on management of development pressures, and on the continuing intangible cultural traditions. ICOMOS considers that the nominated property boundary and buffer zone are adequate to protect the attributes of the proposed outstanding universal value, although they could be further extended in the future through minor boundary modification requests to enhance the protection of the nominated property from urban development and other pressures. Next slide. ICOMOS observes that the legal protection and management system through a moratorium on new hotel development and new policy development, the state party is actively addressing the pressures of urban development, although continued efforts are needed. Next slide. Here is a summary of the ICOMOS evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. Next slide. To conclude, ICOMOS recommends that the cosmological axis of Yogyakarta and its historic landmarks, Indonesia, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2 and 3, and has included a number of further recommendations in the draft decision to aid the long-term conservation of the property. Next slide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, ICOMOS. Are there any comments concerning this nomination?
None. I therefore invite you, dear colleagues, to adopt
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received no amendment for.
very much. And if there are no comments, I see none. Congratulations to Indonesia. On behalf of the
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, to extend our gratitude to the World Heritage Committee for accepting the nomination of the Cosmological and its historical landmarks for inscription on the World Heritage List. We are honored to contribute another extraordinary gem, tangible and intangible attributes. Milan, all esteemed on the UNESCO representatives list of the intangible cultural heritage and passed down to future generations. Unwavering support for this inscription. Jakarta province, who in this occasion will be
of to a Javanese civilization and its a legacy that has thrived since 18th century. It embodies intricate Javanese philosophical concept about human existence. For more than 5 centuries, the Sultanate of Yogyakarta Diningrat has been the epicenter of Javanese civilization, thriving through a diverse tapestry of culture, art, literature, festival, and ceremony. Already carried out for centuries. We also assure that we will maintain the outstanding universal value of the property for future generations. We deeply appreciate your support and cordially invite to all delegates to visit the cosmological axis of Yogyakarta. Thank you, Matur Nuwun.
Thank you very much and congratulations again.
Thank you.
The mic.
From Palestine. No, our brothers, congratulations.
Indonesia. Indonesia. So now I invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the Astronomical Observatories of Kazan Federal University, Russian Federation. But before I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Bassamo, you may have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. We received a factual error notification for the evaluation of the nomination of the Astronomical Observatories of Kazan Federal University, and this is to be found on page 138 of both the English and French version of document INF 8B4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to pass the floor to the ICOMOS.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This is the presentation of the ICOMOS evaluation of the Astronomical Observatories of Kazan University, Russian Federation. The ICOMOS report can be found in document INF.8B1 on page 420 of the English version and page 467 of the French version. On this evaluation, ICOMOS has received a letter on factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. The next slide, please. The Astronomical Observatories of Kazan Federal University has been nominated as a serial property to be included on the voltage list, illustrating the development and evolution of optical astronomy and evidence of the gradual transition from positional astronomy to astrophysics. The Kazan City Astronomical Observatory, a classical building constructed in 1837 to enable observation of the sky, is characterized by a semicircular facade and 3 towers with domes built to house astronomical instruments. The suburban Engelhardt Astronomical Observatory, where observation activities were transferred from the city, was completed in 1901. It is composed of several structures dedicated to sky observation as well as residential buildings. The observatories nowadays perform mainly educational functions. Both observatories represent heritage associated with astronomy and observation of the sky during a period of emergence and development of optical telescopes from the 19th to the early 20th century. ICOMOS noted that the importance of the nominated property in the 19th and early 20th century lies in the development of astronomical science in Eurasia and then in the Soviet era in its position as a leading research center in Russia, particularly in the conquest of space. However, ICOMOS found that the nomination poses some key problems regarding its scope and selection of components. The importance of historical movable instruments used for sky observation purposely created for Kazan or transferred from other observatories is undeniable, but cannot be considered to support the justification for inscription because collection of movable objects are out of the scope of the Voltage Convention and cannot be considered as attributes of outstanding universal value. The nomination dossier focuses on the history and scientific achievements of individual scholars who worked at the Kazan Federal University and underline the significance of their role in developing science. However, according to the operational guidelines, this cannot be considered as a justifying factor for inscription on the Voltage list, unless cultural or scientific interchange between the scholars produced an outstanding creative response that has a tangible representation on site, or the achievements are proved to have outstanding universal significance and are directly or tangibly associated with the nominated property. The next slide, please. The Astronomical Observatories of Kazan Federal University is a serial property of 2 component parts, one located in the historic center of Kazan and one in a forested suburban area 24 kilometers west of the city. Boundaries of component part number 1 encompasses the observatory and laboratory buildings and cover only a small area directly adjacent to them. The boundary of the second component follows the historical boundaries of the site and covers the cadastral land provided in perpetuity to the Kazan Federal University.
The proposed buffer zone of the Engelhardt Observatory covers vast areas, mostly forested around the nominated property. Next slide, please. The legal protection is rigorous, but still requires some amendments to reach a level of protection that would fully reflect the significance of the nominated property and its attributes. The management of the nominated property is satisfactory, and the management authorities have enough human and financial capacities to manage the nominated property. The management plan provides clear strategic objectives and should be implemented as soon as possible. The objectives regarding conservation and community involvement represent a priority. The nominated property lacks conservation research and documentation, which are crucial to prepare a well-informed conservation policy and programs. A comprehensive conservation plan should be developed and implemented as soon as possible to avoid further degradation of the complex. The next slide, please. Here is a summary of the ICOMOS evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. Despite additional information received, the comparative analysis does not convincingly distinguish the Kazan observatories from other ones of the same period and type that also participated in the development of optical astronomy and in the gradual transition from positional astronomy to astrophysics. Although the two observatories belong to the same academic institution, they were developed,
hence their functional and from cultural, scientific, or functional links that provide the required connectivity as per paragraph 137 of the operational guideline. Outcomes of the interchange of values on development of architecture, technology in response to scientific research needs and the representativeness of the type and direct association of the observatories with significant events or ideas could have a physical or functional representation through clear attributes. The boundaries of the Kazan City observatories lack legal status and need to be formalized. The buffer zone of the Kazan City observatories was tight and has been expanded throughout the evaluation process and now needs to be formalized. The protection zone of the suburban observatories should include restriction for the 8 of the new developments, but regulations are not fully enforced. The proposed buffer zone should be extended to control potential developments in villages nearby and should be formally adopted. In addition, although the current state of conservation is acceptable, some significant issues concerning the evolution of the nominated property and its integrity have been identified. For instance, in the case of the Engelhardt Astronomical Observatory building, the planetarium that nominates spatially and functionally the historic site and existing development pressures in the setting have a detrimental impact on the integrity of this component part. The next slide, please. ICOMOS appreciates the intention by the state party to present the astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University and acknowledges the effort made in elaborating the nomination dossier and in investing the necessary resources for protection and preservation of property or its component parts taken individually or in combination with other sites might have the potential to justify consideration for the World Heritage List, but only once their potential outstanding universal significance is clearly presented in comparison with similar properties at the global level and within the relevant geocultural area. Different nomination strategies for the Kazan observatories might be envisaged as well, based on a robust comparative analysis and further documentation and research. Therefore, ICOMOS recommends that Kazan observatories and the Russian Federation be deferred for the following main reasons. Consider if a robust case can be made based on a global thematic framework of astronomical heritage. The next one, please. Reconsider the nomination strategy of the current nominated property,
developed conservation documentation with appropriate analysis to better understand and present the evolution of the observatories in their architectural, functional, and scientific aspects. Would be required once the nomination has been substantially revised. ICOMOS has also included further recommendation in the draft decision to aid the long-term conservation of the property. The next slide, please. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, ICOMOS, for this presentation. I would like to open the floor for comment concerning this nomination, starting with Ethiopia.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me begin by thanking the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies for the comprehensive evaluation of the nomination dossier astronomical observatories of the Kazan Federal University. We are also grateful to the State Party for having provided the factual errors forms and the additional information addressing the recommendations of ICOMOS. Having considered all these documents, my delegation has come to the conclusion that the nominated site merits to be inscribed in the World Heritage List at this session. It is an excellent example of the properties related to the astronomical heritage that are underrepresented on the World Heritage List. Its inscription will contribute to our common endeavor to make it more credible and balanced. Mr. Chairman, the astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University constitute a unique type of university observatories designed in the well-known style of Russian classicism. They represent a significant stage in the formation and development of architectural, landscape, and technological complexes typical for astronomy of the period built in 1833, 1837, and 1899 and 1901. They are still in use today for their initial purposes. Among the optical observatories of the 19th, 20th century, they stand out for their integrity, excellent preservation, and authenticity. Responding to the recommendation of ICOMOS, the State Party has accepted to readjust the nomination strategy and propose the site for the inscription on the basis of criteria 2 and 4. The astronomical observatories brilliantly fulfilled the historical mission to boost the scientific research and enhance Eurasia's intercultural and scientific dialogue. Russian scientists and visiting professors from Europe and Asia work together to mutually enrich astronomy with their knowledge. The discoveries made in observatories in the 20th century led to the launch of the first successful crewed space flight of Yuri Gagarin, marking the new era in the human history. Moreover, the Kazan observatories represent classical and neoclassical architecture combined with technological ensembles that illustrates more than 2 centuries of human history. It contains a set of authentic instruments, including the world's only still functioning heliometer telescope. The site also influenced the formation of similar complexes in the world. The State Party has already taken the necessary measures to address the recommendation of ICOMOS concerning the management plan and of the property for the long and medium term, and also the legal status of the 2 buffer zones. Based on the above, Ethiopia submits amendments of item 45.8b45 for consideration and invite the State Party to provide further elaboration. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mali, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Mali commends the efforts of the Secretariat and the Advisory
Board to the astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University. Let us note that in its evaluation, ICOMOS believes that the nomination has been in the World Heritage List. The conservation state is satisfactory of the 2 properties, and this reflects the historical development of the
observatories, the neoclassical, classical architectural styles, the history of astronomy, its development from optical astronomy to astrophysics. But nevertheless, it's important to have these sites on the World Heritage List. A management plan has been developed for the observatory in the medium and long term, and Russia is implementing programs to preserve these sites. A general plan for the conservation and use of the property is currently being implemented with sufficient funding, and or the necessary organizational measures that have been implemented. Russia has also indicated that it would be happy to welcome a future ICOMOS mission. Given these elements, we commend the efforts made by Russia, and we believe that inscribing this property will help its protection, safeguarding for future generations, and will also contribute to those of the World Heritage Convention. And this is why we call upon the committee to maintain a favorable opinion on its inscription, and we support the proposed amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jumhuriyat Masr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. We would like to thank the State Party of Russia for submitting this nomination and the advisory bodies for their assessment.
We believe that these observatories, consisting of two distinct components, hold profound cultural, scientific, and historical significance, and their inclusion on the World Heritage List would recognize their unique contributions to human knowledge and intercultural dialogue. Having examined the inscription dossier, we believe that this site meets the criterions 2 and 4, and we are favorable for its inscription in the current session. We have a question for the State Party, Mr. Chairman. ICOMOS in its recommendations noted that the need to strengthen measures to ensure sustainable integrated conservation of the site, continuity of use and vulnerability in the context of the dynamic development of the city of Kazan. So how could the State Party comment on these issues? I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
جزيلا دولة قطر.
To co-author the amendment proposed by Ethiopia and support the inscription of the Astronomical Observatory of Kazan Federal University on the UNESCO World Heritage List. We have carefully examined the submitted nomination dossier and the management plan of the property and agreed that the nominated property has outstanding universal value. The presented dossier shows that both component parts are in good condition. Their historical, architectural, and the landscape integrity, as well as educational and scientific function are preserved. Mr. Chair, the State Party is making maximum effort to protect the nominated property from potential impact related to the urban development. The buffer zone have been approved, due legal protective regimes, as well as requirement to the current town planning regulation have been adopted. We would like also to note that the tourist visit and the tours of the Museum of the Engelhard Astronomical Observatory allows to raise awareness about the astronomical science as a whole and the attribute of the outstanding universal value of the property in particular. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to pass the floor to India.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving India the 5Com 8B.36 Astronomical Observatories of Kazan Federal Universities, which has got a deferral recommendation by the expert body, but we have amendments presented for inscriptions. I thank the excellent work done by the World Heritage Secretariat and the expert body. We respect the views of the advisory body. Hence, when the advisory body has given a deferral recommendation, then there are major considerations involved. If the amendment is for deferral to inscription, then serious discussions and clarifications are required. The nomination dossier is quite detailed in terms of describing the scientific achievements associated with the property and its historical significance, indicating the potential for its outstanding universal value. But to translate this potential into describing the property itself in detail, supported with technical information like drawing, so as to be able to clarify, define the attributes of the property. Apart from the ICOMOS recommendations of A, re-examine or clearly stating the rationale for selection of the two observatories, B. Defining property boundaries to completely express the outstanding universal value. And C. Re-examine the criteria for inscription. It is also suggested that some of the text in Chapter 2, description of the property, can be converted into an annexure, and its conclusions in correlation with the attributes of the property be made the focus of description in the main chapter, which could help strengthen the justification for inscription. India's expert body, the Archaeological Survey of India, has gone through the document. The state body of the Russian Federation met us and had detailed discussion on it. They have provided information and clarifications. After having gone through the clarifications given by the state party of the Russian Federation, we have come to the conclusion that to have this property inscribed on the World Heritage List, and the state party of India supports the amendments for inscription. We would like to ask of Russia. Comparative analysis can be strengthened by citing in each case how the nominated property is different from the comparative case study, instead of giving an overall conclusion. Some aspects that may be explored to strengthen the proposed outstanding value. Does the geographical location of the observatories give them any advantage in astronomical observation which other observatories may not have? 2. Architecturals, instead of focusing on the style like neoclassical, may be the original development of the optical telescope-based observatory at Kazan as a unique building typology may be a better approach for justification. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I request that
astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal and suburban observatories still fulfill their original scientific and educational stage development and ensuring a high level. In many ways, they laid the foundation for the exploration of outer space and the discovery of international and interdisciplinary fundamental and applied research of Kazan astronomers is carried out in close contact with the continuity and inseparable connection of the two component parts is also of observatory reflect the continuity with the observatory and the ensemble of Kazan University. Together, these two complexes illustrate a significant period in the history of formation of scientific and educational architectural landscape complexes. ICOMOS acknowledges that the state of conservation of both components. In view of the above, Oman supports the draft amendment presented by Ethiopia to inscribe. Thank you so much.
We understand one of the issues raised by ICOMOS permission, Chair. We would like to hear from ICOMOS as well as ICOMOS thematic studies. because we and the reports of these studies are useful tools how those studies are used in this dossier.
The detailed presentation from Federal University for the World Heritage List. This is a very peculiar nomination representing heritage associated with astronomy and observation of the sky, a type of heritage which, as it has been recognized by the advisory body, is not well represented on the World Heritage List. Now, a significant part of the features of the nominated property, as it is also demonstrated that was distributed by the state party, constitutes movable heritage, represented by the significant and various astronomical instruments used in the observatories. By the paragraph 48 of the operational guidelines, nominations of a movable heritage which are likely to become movable will not be considered. Nevertheless, it is clear that for this kind of architecture, astronomic tools, etc., represent an indisputable complement. Therefore, Italy would like to know from Russian Federation which kind of provisions the state party can guarantee in order to assure the conservation of a movable
advisory body for its very comprehensive evaluation report. After having carefully examined, I'd like to address a question to the state party concerning the selection criteria of the component party, which are the cultural, social, scientific, or functional links between the two selected components of this serial nomination, based on the requirements set by paragraph 137 of the operational guidelines. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zambia, the assessment and preparing the draft amendment of Russia's astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University. The observation by ICOMOS that this site is about collections, Zambia is more than convinced that this site still remains and qualifies as a site with an astronomical global significance that has retained its original functionality. In accordance with the principles enshrined in Article 11 of the World Heritage Convention, Zambia expresses the UNESCO World Heritage List. The observatories located in Kazan pivotal role in advancing scientific research and scientific exchanges across Eurasia, in line with the Convention's emphasis on cultural and scientific cooperation. You may refer to paragraph 49 of operational guidelines, Mr. Chairman. Initially convinced as international and interdisciplinary institutions, the fundamental and astronomers continues to maintain close collaboration with prominent global scientific institutions, exemplifying the concerning the preservation of the site's integrity and authenticity have been diligently for 4 of the World Heritage Convention, and the measures implemented by the chairman on this. And
thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Russian Federation for bringing this expertly developed nomination. Yesterday, when the state party accepted all recommendations by ICOMOS with regard to the deferral of the nomination of the Historic Center of Gorokovets. We thank ICOMOS for a detailed report that assists the committee in making a decision. Evaluation report, ICOMOS knows that OUV can be easily demonstrated through criterion 4. Mr. Chair, South Africa considered that the nomination in its current form makes a compelling case for also criteria 2. With respect to criteria 2, South Africa is convinced that the astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University do indeed demonstrate exchanges in human and astronomical research from the 19th region. With respect to criteria 4, we are convinced that ICOMOS sees unique examples of classical and neoclassical buildings linked with technological ensemble. We are therefore calling for the inscription, which is criteria 2 and criteria 4. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. المملكة العربية السعودية.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia welcomes the nomination Astronomical Observatories of Kazan Federal University to UNESCO World Heritage List, giving the low representation of astronomical heritage sites in the existing UNESCO World Heritage List. We fully support Ethiopia proposal. The nomination represents not only historical and cultural heritage, but also reflects the history of the development of scientific thinking. We note the significant role of Kazan University observatories in such important world discoveries. As the first man's entry into space and landing on the moon, the study of the sun, and the universe in general. In our opinion, of scientific all in the 19th century. Between the cultures of the West and the East, the North and the South, Europe and Asia. For this reason, we would like to support the presented amendments. Thank you very much.
Shukran.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Arguments on this floor in favor of amendment proposed by Ethiopia, as well as our earlier exchanges with Russia Federation and the responses provided by the state party this morning, Nigeria would like to join the co-sponsors of this amendment to the draft decision and would like to be added to the list of the co-sponsors. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thailand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thailand wishes to thank the advisory bodies and the Secretariat for their reports and the State Party for their nomination dossier. We want to underline one important point. The nomination of the astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University on the World Heritage List was prepared within the Astronomy and World Heritage Thematic Initiative in order to synergy of the UNESCO mandate. Thailand welcomes and recognizes the efforts of the State Party regarding the implementation of activities within this important endeavor, and therefore we would like to support the amendment proposed by Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no more interventions, so I'd like to
Egypt, India, Japan, Italy, Greece. Russian Federation, you may have the floor.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone for your questions. In order to ensure the sustainable, comprehensive protection of the properties, we have approved the master plan and other documentation, the protection status, and the development of the territories of these properties. We have banned any kind of construction within the protection zone of the observatories. The properties are managed and function in consideration of a 43. In order to prevent potential threats from new projects, we conduct an impact analysis in order to ensure the protection, authenticity, and integrity of the property. Urban planning of the city observatory as a federal protected object as part of the university is ensured by special urban protection zones and is also strictly regulated. As for the comparative analysis, the comparative analysis was conducted with 11 observatories from the World Heritage List of UNESCO, and also with more than 30 optical observatories in Asia, the Americas, and Europe. These include the University Observatories of Colombia, and also from France, Germany, Argentina, Hungary, and other countries. I would also like to note that both Kazan observatories are continued to be used for their initial purposes, and this has already been stated in various statements. As for additional information on this issue, the Russian Federation immediately joined work on the thematic initiative of UNESCO, Astronomy and World Heritage. In 2009, at the Kazan University, together with the World Heritage Center of UNESCO and the International Astronomical Union, we conducted an international conference on this topic with the participation of a large number of countries. At this conference, a decision was adopted to potentially include our observatories in the World Heritage List. During this time, we have also conducted other international congresses and seminars, including with the discussion of attributes and the OUV, marking the 60th anniversary of the first flight into space and other aspects related to conservation, scientific research of these and other optical observatories from the historical and modern periods. Our nomination is fully aligned with the UNESCO initiative, and the Russian Federation has conducted a significant amount of work working with many observatories from around the world, including to conduct a comparative analysis of the properties included in the World Heritage List and optical observatories. We have carefully studied the thematic studies of ICOMOS in 2010 and 2017, and we highlight that this nominated property will be very important in closing the gap
with respect to heritage list, our country is ready to continue to implement the thematic initiative Astronomy and World Heritage. There were many, many questions, so I can continue. With respect to the operational guidelines on the implementation of the World Heritage Convention of 1972, consider movable heritage as something that's included in the OUV. Russia places particular emphasis on the preservation of the instruments in the observatory. Some of them are stored inside the observatory and they continue to fulfill their function and are used for educational purposes. Others are included in the collections of historical museums, the Lobachevsky Museum in the university, as well as the Engelhardt Observatory Museum. And we have included the documentation. As for immovable heritage, it is protected by national laws concerning museum collections in the Russian Federation. And there were two more questions. Could I continue?
Hello.
As for the selection criteria, these were done as follows. The second role in the development of optical astronomy in the 19th and 20th century, the transition from classical astronomy to modern astrophysics. This property reflects the synergy between human culture and values, as well as academic work. Poland, Russia, and other countries, and this led to the founding of an astronomical school, a university which is part of the International Astronomical Union. As for criteria number 4, we have already said a lot about architecture. In conclusion, how can we explain the selection of the component parts, including the city observatory and the suburban observatory as part of this serial nomination, was determined by the fact that both of them reflect a certain stage of development in astronomy in terms of optical observations and their contribution to astrophysics. Both are unique cultural objects and science. They have been used for a wide range of scientific studies and in our region and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I would like to pass the floor to ICOMOS to respond to some inquiries, specifically by the distinguished delegation of Japan.
Thank you. Study was used. There has been a reply by the state party. ICOMOS recognized provided additional comparison. Clarify in what way these observatories would be distinguished by others. And the comparative analysis prepared by the state party also recognized that there are a number of other similar observatories that exist and that still exist. And that are comparable and similar to their own. When it comes to the
thematic study, one thing needs to be understood, that is, thematic studies are not aimed to identify whether the cases that are exemplified demonstrate outstanding universal value. They basically compiling this field and on specific properties or sites that are part of this thematic study. One thing that ICOMOS checked, recognized that the observatory of Kazan were not, that is not the key point. The point is that the thematic studies offer a framework for looking at sites that might be useful for
comparative analysis, and was exactly the its evaluation is that the two component parts demonstrate different period of histories and don't look really to reflect the two criteria, the three criteria that the state party has initially submitted, then reducing the focus on the criterion 2 and criterion 4. Essentially, in these two parts, in the general part of the comparative analysis, ICOMOS could not find how the comparison that has been carried out by the state party on several observatories could demonstrate how this serial property could be singled out compared to other ones that have been included in their comparative analysis. The other point that ICOMOS has underlined concern that the rationale for the presentation of these two justified according to the paragraphs of the operational guidance that are relevant to this. Of course, these two observatories are part of the same Kazan Federal University, but that ICOMOS didn't find this sufficient to justify the series. And I hope I have responded to the question concerning comparative analysis that was posed by Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ICOMOS. Are there any more questions concerning this nomination?
So if there are no more questions, then I invite you, dear colleagues, to adopt the draft decision 45Com 8B.45. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendment on the draft decision proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received one amendment from the distinguished delegation of Ethiopia, which is co-authored by the distinguished delegation of South Africa.
Furthermore, there has been support from the committee members from the floor, namely distinguished delegation of Mali, Egypt, Qatar, India, Oman, Zambia, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and Thailand.
On the floor, but I think it was just for the query. So the proposed amendment, para 2, inscribes the astronomical observatories of Kazan Federal University, Russian Federation, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2 and 4. Statement of outstanding universal value. Of KFU. Universal value, as well as the master plan for the conservation and use of the Engelhardt Astronomical Observatory, provided with appropriate funding and scientific and organizational measures. B. Implementing at the Engelhardt Astronomical Observatory, in bracket component part 002, a heritage impact assessment of all proposals related to the regeneration of the approved buffer zone, as well as controlling the possible impact of the development of settlements, in bracket Oktyabrsky and Orekova villages, Novaya Tura Technopolis, and their urban planning documentation. C. Buffer zones. Para 5 invites the state party in cooperation with the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies to actively participate and contribute to programmatic activities of the thematic initiative Astronomy and World Heritage to enhance scientific research and capacity building on this matter and to raise the visibility of the initiative, relevant properties, and the sites related to astronomy. Para 6, requests the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1 December 2025 a report on the implementation on the above-mentioned recommendations for review by the World Heritage Committee at its 47th session. Thank you.
So paragraph 1, we don't have amendments. Do we agree to accept the paragraph as it is? I see no objections. Adopted. Paragraph 2, we have a proposal. Do we agree with the proposed text? I see no objections. We have a proposed text. So I see none. The paragraph is adopted as amended. We have a proposed text. Do we agree with this proposal? Amended. Paragraph 5. Text. I see no objections. Adopted as amended. Paragraph 6.
If I may intervene, Mr. Chair, the date would be 1 December 2024.
Thank you. Do we agree with this proposed paragraph? I see no objections. Adopted as amended. Dear colleagues, I invite you to adopt the draft decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. Shukran. Rahmat in the Tatar language. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the wonderful organization of this committee's session, for your hospitable
welcome that you have given us to this Holy Land. Thank you very much, Chair, for your professional organization of our work and for creating a constructive atmosphere
which proposed the very constructive amendments. We thank everyone who lended their support to us. Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Mali, Zambia, India, Nigeria, and Thailand. We would like to thank everyone, all countries and all committee members that participated in our discussions. I would also like to express our gratitude to the World Heritage nomination, which will continue. The adopted decision will help preserve the unique heritage, which is a blend of culture and science. Kazan Federal University is a major academic and scientific center, and the inscription of its observatory to the World Heritage List and student community of the to attract additional attention among youth to how important it is. This decision will also help promote the deepening of international scientific ties. Kazan is the capital of the Republic of Tatarstan in the Russian Federation. Historically, it has been a crossroads of civilizations, a symbolic crossroads of cultural, religious, and scientific traditions. The Kazan Federal University historical mission, their mission of being a bridge between the West and the East, Europe and Asia, North and South. Tatarstan is undergoing rapid development, and it is known in Russia and beyond as a great model for intercultural and interfaith dialogue. With your permission, I would like to give the floor to the Minister of Culture of the Republic of Tatarstan of the Russian Federation. Thank you very much. For us, this is our fourth property. And I would like to say a few words regarding Tatiana Petrovna. Thank you, Tatiana Petrovna Larionovna, to my colleague. Good afternoon, although it's already evening. Thank you so much. If we were to say that we were delighted, that would be an understatement. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to each and every one of you, to each country, every member of the committee, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bitzer Ahmad. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations again. So now we have about 10 minutes left, and with the agreement between the next nominations, Portugal and France, Portugal agreed to allow France to go first before we close this session. So now I invite ICOMOS to
Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, you.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to the evaluation of this nomination, we received a notification of 04 of Inf 8B4. In this notification, there were some factual errors that affected the text of the declaration on OUV, and these corrections have already been incorporated into our version, which we are looking at here on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. This is the presentation of the ICOMOS presentation of the Maison Carré in Nîmes, France. The
on page 1 and page 517 of the French version. On factual errors, and has acknowledged some of these errors. Next slide, please. The Maison Carrée is one of the earliest examples of the Roman temple. associated with the imperial cult in the Roman provinces. Its architecture and decoration are quite elaborate, and they represent empire, ushering in a new age known as the Pax Romana. Designed as a rectangle, the Maison to the process annexed region. ICOMOS believes that the nomination southeastern end includes the area along Avenue Faucher, part of an ensemble of buildings can be seen from the archaeological remains. ICOMOS of the entirety of the forum has later urban development. To recover its original shape without major modifications to its structure, and to conserve some of the elements of the decoration. Any modifications to its features or any restoration, regional directorate of the nominated property management level of the municipality of Nîmes, and is executed in collaboration with the Regional Directorate for Cultural Affairs, the value of the of Nîmes, France 4, and includes additional recommendations.
Nomination. Come on.
Thank you very much. Ambassadors, we have listened for 2 days for.
I would like to thank ICOMOS for the positive and they are putting it for the nomination. This saved us a lot of that we see this is a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I see no more intervention, then therefore I invite you, dear colleagues, to adopt 9, but before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received
B.49
Distinguished Chair of the Committee, Director of the WHC, experts, to the Maison Carré is nearly perfect in its purity and its simplicity. Thank the members of the committee. Give the floor to Jean-Paul Fournier, the mayor of Nîmes.
Permettez-moi tout d'abord.
Allow me at the outset to thank note the work of the experts of the IUCN. This decision honors us. We thank the teams for their work.
World Heritage.
To this decision. The people of Nîmes, of French citizens, the French Republic.
Dear colleagues, I would like to extend a special Thank to the interpreters.
For to say that we have in Hegra room organized by ICOMOS and IUCN on how to list tentatively how it will start at 6:30. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director, and see you tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to inform you that the scheduled night visit to Al Masmak Palace Museum and Souq al-Zal, the Lion Experience, Boulevard Riyadh, also at Tarif World Heritage Site. These places are confirmed for today. Please proceed to the pickup and drop-off areas located at the Prince Sultan Hall. We would like to announce that the night visit center is also open and is located outside the plenary exit on the right side. Thanks for your attention.